Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Foliage. I hope you guys are fine and are safe. In today's video, we'll be talking about leca. Now, what exactly is leca? Leca is basically a lightweight expanded clay aggregate, which means that it can be used for growing plants. It's usually used in hydroponics and other aquaponics as well, wherein people tend to use this for growing vegetables and plants. But before we start talking about how to use leca, there are certain things you need to keep in mind. Now, this leca was purchased from affordable organic store. I'll put the link in the description below. You can check it out. It was extremely cheap. It was only 49 rupees for this quantity. I think it was around 250 grams. I'm not quite sure, but I'll put the link in the description below. You can check it out. So basically, the clay balls are heated in fire to an extreme temperature wherein they start to pop. And here you can see it's extremely light in weight. And this is how leca tends to look like. Mud does not have its own nutrients. It's basically an inorganic material that you will be using in your plants. So you will have to add some kind of fertilizers if you're planning to grow your plants in this, because on its own leca does not contain any kind of nutrients. It tends to absorb nutrients when it is added into the leca balls. The first and the most important thing, once you open the packet, this is the most important part. You have to wash your leca balls. You cannot use it directly. The reason is because there could be some bacteria or some kind of fungus in it. You have to ensure that you clean it properly. Apart from that, there is going to be a lot of mud in it because, as I said, it is made out of clay. There will be a lot of dust in it, so you basically need to clean. Now here, as you can see, the moment I added some water to it, the leca tends to float, as you can see, and over the period of time the leca will get expanded little bit when it tends to absorb water. And once leca expands, once it absorbs water, it is going to become slightly heavy. Right now it's floating because it was completely dry. But as you can see, as I'm starting to wash and rinse the leca, you can see there is a lot of brown water. Now this is because of all the dust that is present in the leca clay balls. Now you have to rinse it until the water starts getting clear, because what is going to happen is, if you're just going to wash it once and put it into your pots, in your glass jar or anything, the water is going to turn brown. So you have to ensure that you rinse couple of times until and unless you tend to see that the water is clear. Usually it takes 2 to 3 washes and then the water starts becoming clear. But as you can see, this is how brown the water is. Now I'll have to wash it another 2 to 3 times in order for the water to get completely clear. Now always remember, you have to wash it. You can see how dirty the water is. So it's very important that you rinse it as much as you can until and unless the water starts getting clear, because again there could be a lot of harmful bacteria in it, because they tend to produce it and keep it aside and then it is packed. So meanwhile, there could be insects, there could be bacteria, there could be anything that can be present in it. So it's very important that you wash it. Now guys, I've completely done washing. So what I'm going to do is, the last time that I'm going to wash it in a bigger tray so that you will be able to see it. Now you can see the last wash, you can see it's completely clear now. There is no browning of the water, and you can also notice, because the leca was just removed out of the plastic, that is why they have not completely expanded and they have not absorbed much water. That's the reason why they are floating. So this is how it is, and now I can determine that my leca is completely clean, because you can see that the water is not getting dirty. The water is more clear. I had done 2 to 3 washings and this was the 4th one. So by the 4th wash, the leca was completely clean, and now as you can see, the water is much clear. So this is how the water has to be. It has to be completely clear, and only then you can use it. Now there are 2 options what you can do. You can after the 4th wash, you can use hot water and put your leca in hot water, so that if there are any harmful ingredients in it, that can be killed. If there are any harmful bacteria or anything, or any insects or anything, it can completely kill them off. But you can even do a hot water thing, or you can even put it out in afternoon direct sunlight. Now what I usually tend to do is, after I have done the washing, after my leca is completely clean, I then go ahead and put them out in afternoon direct sunlight, like proper afternoon sunlight from 1 until 4, wherein the sun is really strong. It kind of heats up the leca and it tends to kill off all the harmful bacteria that could be present in this leca. So you have to wait until it's completely dry, and here, as you can see, this is how it looks when it is wet. Another important thing, when leca is wet, it is going to be more darker in color, and as and when it starts to dry, it is going to get lighter in color. So whenever you're using it in any jar, always ensure you use it in a transparent jar so it's much visible for you to understand. Now over here, as you can see, this is the next day. It was still in afternoon direct sunlight, and now you can see it has completely changed the color to lighter color, which means that the leca is completely dry. Now, when you're using leca, I would always recommend go with a transparent jar. You can either go for a glass jar or a plastic container which is transparent, because as I said, you have to ensure that the leca is wet at all given point of time. It should not be dry, because when you are going to put your plant in it, the leca has to be dry. Now usually I tend to use leca for propagation of my foliage plants. A lot of people tend to grow their foliage plants completely in leca. Now the reason behind that is because a lot of people tend to grow their plants indoor. Now when you tend to grow indoor, there is going to be a lot of soil spill. There's going to be a lot of dirtiness in the house because of the soil. So in order to avoid that, a lot of people tend to move to leca, because this is less dirty. There is no water that is going to spill onto the floor. There is no mud that is going to fall out of the pot. So a lot of people tend to use this as a growing media permanently. But I don't use it permanently. The reason is because it is little efforts that you need to put in. The efforts are that you have to change the water every 4 or 5 days, so you have to be very careful. Now I have so many plants that I cannot do that every now and then, so I only use this for my propagation of plants. And then I put, once the roots are appeared on my propagation plant, I then move it into soil. So I only use leca for propagation of my foliage plants. Another important thing, always remember the water has to be almost 1/4. Never completely fill the entire jar with water. The water only has to be 1/4, as you can see over here. And after that, you have to just put your plant in it. You can do any kind of cutting and you can just put your plant, but always ensure that the roots are above the water and not inside the water. Over the period of time, as you can see over here, the roots will slowly get into the water and it will start growing. But again, you have to do a water change every 4 or 5 days, depending upon how soon the water starts to get bad. A lot of times the water will get evaporated, so again you have to do add little bit of more water depending upon your environment. Sometimes in my environment the water tends to get evaporated very fast, so I tend to add a lot of water. So now over here, as you can see, this was a propagation that I had done a stem cutting and then I had added into the leca. Again, you can see the water was very low. It has to be 1/4, and then the roots entered into the water. And now that the roots are present, I'm going to go ahead and transplant it into the soil. So this is how it tends to look like. You can see how the roots have attached onto the leca. So this is how I tend to use them for propagation. So once the roots are present, I then take them out and put them into the soil. I don't permanently grow my plants in leca. So this is how the roots look like. You can see it's very healthy. They have been in water. The roots tend to grow a little bit faster, but as I said, always remember you have to keep a watch on it. The leca should not completely dry. There always should be 1/4 of water in the edge of the jar that you're using, and always go for a transparent jar so that it becomes much easy for you to understand when the leca is dry or not. Because as soon as the leca starts to dry, it is going to turn lighter in color. Right now over here, as you can see, all of my leca is dark in color because there is constant water at the bottom, almost 1/4, and the leca keeps absorbing that water, and then that helps the roots absorb the water. So this is one of the method that you can use your leca for propagation. Again, it completely depends upon you. A lot of people tend to grow the plants permanently in leca, but again, as I said, you have to change the water, and a lot of times there is a lot of risk of the roots getting rotted, so you have to be extremely careful. I do not want to get into all that because I cannot afford to change water every now and then because I keep attending with other plants, so it becomes little difficult. So I avoid growing plants permanently in leca. But yes, there is a high chance of root rot, especially if you're growing your plants permanently in leca. So you always have to keep a check, always do a water change. Apart from that, you also have to add liquid fertilizer because obviously leca does not have its own nutrients. So you have to add liquid fertilizer in order for the plant to grow and for the plant to get the nutrients. So in order for me not to get into all this, I just use it for propagation. As soon as I tend to see the roots, I take out the plant and then put it into the soil, and then I continue with another propagation. Again, I do a cutting and then add the cutting into leca. So in this way I keep shuffling my plants. I do not completely grow them in leca. But again, leca can work out really well for a lot of people who do not have space, who do not like to create any dirt inside the house, or if you have kids, pets, they might go and touch the soil. So in that way, if you can use leca, it is going to work out really well for you. So guys, I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep planting.